Mr. Winfree, historically, the department has put a lot of priority on highway programs, but it seems that young people are choosing dense urban areas instead of moving back to the suburbs or to the suburbs. Can you expand on the department's efforts to prioritize multimodal research? In other words, they don't necessarily need cars.
Right,
as
exactly.
much.
Well, one of the areas that we're focused on has to do with pedestrian and bike safety. We realize in our monitoring the uptick in roadway fatalities. And unfortunately, that number of pedestrian fatalities is 4,400 of that 5,000 or so. So it's an important issue because at some point we're all pedestrians. So we've made pedestrian and bike safety a core issue of focus. We have at the U.S. DOT a safety council that brings together the chief modal safety officers for each of our operating administrations, and we've set up a technical team to address these issues. The Federal Highway Administration has done significant work in this area, as well as the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. So there is a lot of effort that has been put into it. It's just a matter of increasing the focus and finding a permanent home. The DOT is set up largely by a mechanized means of transportation, and pedestrian and bike is important, but it tends to fall into the cracks. So since it's an issue of great importance, and certainly we hear from city mayors, we hear from MPOs and other entities that are focused on this important area, we're bringing our resources to bear to address it. But from a multimodal perspective, at the Office of the Assistant Secretary for Research and Technology, that's our principal mission, to focus across the enterprise and help each of the OAs get out of silo thinking or stovepipe thinking so that we're better custodians of taxpayer dollars. So we also have a research and development planning council and planning team, and that's comprised of the chief research officers for each of the OAs, focusing on a monthly basis on important topics across the enterprise. So it's a means for us to bring together and foster that collaboration multimodally.
That's very good to hear. Dr. Barkan, given that you are the only non-vehicle focused witness here, do you have any thoughts on how the department can continue to expand its investments beyond highway?
Sure. As I said in my comments, one of the things that I think should be considered in the upcoming legislation is to allow other modal administrations, the Federal Railroad Administration I would have in mind, to, if they want to add funds to the University Transportation Center program, that would be a very good thing. As I mentioned in my comments as well, we spend far less on rail-related research in this country than the other modes by a pretty considerable margin, and yet I think many people would agree that the importance of railroads is already extremely important and growing daily, both on the passenger and the freight side. There's lots of technologies that I think, or other solutions that could be developed if there was more funding devoted to rail research, whether it's through the UTC program or the FRA's R&D budget. However that can be made to happen, I think would be very good for rail and for the transportation system as a whole.
I don't know if anybody else wanted to comment.
I think we're in a transformational stage in transportation, and that really excites me. And it's not just around the cars. We've talked a lot about cars, but Congresswoman, I mean, I think you really tapped into it, and it's really the shared use mobility environment that we're moving into. And you're seeing all kinds of really interesting opportunities to provide those people who live in urban environments to utilize different modes of transportation. And that's one of the areas that ITS America focuses on, and it's trying to highlight those new opportunities. So there are now applications, like there's a company that actually has an application here called Ride Scout. Ride Scout's one of the most interesting companies around. What they do is they're a consolidator. And so you can go on to the Ride Scout application, and it'll tell you whether there's a car share, a ride share, what the transit options are, whether it's a bus, the train, how long it'll take in each opportunity, how much it'll cost, and it'll allow you to make an informed decision about what the best way to get from point A to point B is. And that's what people who live in urban centers need now. It gives you the opportunity to compare that to driving. And you can do that in a cost-effective way. Then you can actually drill down on Google Maps and figure out where you need to walk to get to that next metro stop or to that next bike share program. The thing that I think is the next wonderful stage for that is going to be a common pricing platform over the top, so that you can, once you put your data in, you can actually pay for all of those applications in one app, or for all of those transportation options in one application. We're not there yet, but I think that's the next phase for a company like Ride Scout. There are a lot of other really cool, innovative companies that are providing us the kind of information that we need to be multimodal and really take advantage of the transportation options that we've got in this country. And they're expanding on a daily basis, and it's really being driven largely by communications opportunities.
Thank you.
If we have time, I would add to that. I completely agree that ITS has to be applied to all of our transportation modes. And pedestrians, motorcyclists, and bicyclists, I think, are critically important. Clearly, there are great mobility applications, potentially, also safety applications, where that phone that you're carrying could become a beacon for you so a car doesn't hit you. And we all are, in the same day, pedestrians, we get on the train, we drive in our car, some of us take a bus. The other beautiful thing about that is that that phone, if you then plunk it into your 1965 Mustang, with a good antenna on the roof, it could become a connected vehicle. And if you think about how quickly we turn over phones, we get a new phone every 2 years, or most of us do. We get a new car every 5 or 10. And so we could, if through that phone as a, quote, deployment device, we could make all those other vehicles connected in a much quicker fashion. And I think there's a lot of research that needs to happen to protect pedestrians and bicyclists and motorcycles for safety, but also to use that as what I call a nomadic seating device to get us to that critical mass much faster.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.